If you don't know why this video exists, be sure to watch this update video first. Let's go! I'd like to preface this video by saying a massive thank you to Mike of Atomic Shrimp, whose own scambaiting content encouraged me to get into scambaiting, and look where we are, over a year later. I'd also like to say a massive thank you to CJ Scams and Take a Glass of Water Media for their support and for their efforts in the ongoing fight against scammers. Be sure to check them all out for some great scambaiting content. All of the links are in the description below. With that said and done, let's waste no further time and revisit our first ever scammer in this special remastered edition of the first ever episode. Love you guys. We start, again, today with this email from Mr. Thomas Jace claiming I'm a BMW enthusiast and that I had won the coveted and completely legitimate BMW lottery with a prize of 1.5 million, an Apple laptop, and of course it wouldn't be a BMW lottery without it, a brand spanking new BMW 760i in metallic silver.
Nice.
The obviously templated email continues with some waffle about being approved by the British Gaming Board, followed by the peculiar sentence, "This promotional lottery is the third of its kind, and we intend to sensitise the public." Not sure if something has been lost in translation there, or if BMW are planning to make the world a more empathic place, one lottery at a time. Mr. Jace then outlines the very personal details I must provide as soon as possible in order for me to proceed with the claim. I reply with the following, purposely not including the very essential details required and also sneakily changing the currency from dollars to pounds, which by today's exchange rate means I will be receiving an extra 350,000 quid. Will you notice? Of course not. He follows up with the standard copy-pasta email that's designed to seal the deal and give the whole thing a ring of authenticity, which naturally it loses when put under any sort of rudimentary scrutiny. Further down the email are the two delivery options available to me, ground shipment, which is slower but cheaper, and air freight, which is faster but more expensive, apparently scarier too. Now, in the past, I suspect this scammer must have dealt with people asking for the charges to be deducted from the fund, as there is a preemptive bit about how they cannot do this, citing legal reasons about being unable to sue the couriers if something went wrong. 'Cause that sounds legit. By this point, we know Mr. Raghav's Gupta is a waffly sort of fellow, and was beside himself with gratitude, so instead of replying with what was asked for, I replied, "Dear Mr. Jace, firstly, I'd like to dispense with such formalities. Any man who has enabled me to retire by gifting me £1.5 million US, a new car, and a laptop computer must be considered a friend of the highest order. So, let me be Bob to you, my preferred nickname, and you can be Tom to me. I must say this has all come at the most perfect time. My current car, a sky blue Toyota Yaris, has developed so many problems that if it were a person, it would be classed as terminally ill. As for the money, well, I've got so many debts, I'm practically swimming in final notices, demands for payment, and threats from the RSPCA. I'm so happy right now, I could cry. Finally, I'll be able to clear those debts and live a trouble-free life in a lap of luxury. Thank you so much. Before we proceed, I do have a few questions, if I may ask." Impatience starting to show, the scammer, probably eager to get things back on track, replies, "Hello, Mr. Raghav's Bob Gupta. I received your mail and it was well understood, which I actually want to congratulate you because you're very blessed to be elected as the successful winner. You can as well go ahead and ask me the question. Note, delay will not be needed anymore. Immediately the delivery department confirm your payment, they will commence to your home address with your winnings, and also your tracking number will be issued to you till they arrive to your doorstep. You'll be able to track your parcel and make you sign on the document they will deliver to you as proof that you've received your winnings, because they're going to bring a copy of it back to the office." I actually feel stupider for reading that. Thomas Jace made the fatal error of allowing me to ask questions, so instead of doing all in my power to begin claiming my fortune, I decided to ask more details about what's inside the contents of the coveted premium package. Ignoring my question almost entirely, the scammer replies with more copy-pasta, designed to nudge me back on track to being scammed.
Oh, I don't think so.
He also provided me some bank account details, which I put to good use reporting to the respective bank's fraud team. Never one to be fobbed off so easily by scammers, I switched my focus to the Apple laptop computer instead, stating my fictional son was a tech wizard and "I want specifications, damn it," whilst also inserting a fib at the end about moving money about in my accounts to keep the scammer on the hook. He replies with a link to the Apple shop for a laptop he no doubt chose at random, and nudged again with his bank details. He made a fairly innocuous comment, hoping the laptop would make my son smile too. Alas, in the spirit of making the scammer uncomfortable whilst simultaneously wasting as much of his time as possible, I replied, "Good morning, Mr. Tom. Thank you for the link to the Apple website regarding the Apple laptop machine. My son is very excited, as I've said he can have it. I, on the other hand, have an old Toshiba computer laptop machine, which, despite its age and unusual whirring noise when it's on, and occasionally smoke if I visit certain websites, I can't bear to part with it. It's rather like an old family pet that has a tendency to pee on the carpet and has chronic flatulence. Unfortunately, my son, though pleased with getting a new laptop computer machine, is unable to actually smile due to a rare birth defect. It is my intention to use some of the £1.5 million US dollars to get him corrective surgery, so once again thank you for changing not only my life, but his as well. It is my intention to go to the bank when it opens and have my money for the shipping fee moved into a single account, so I can send it when I get home. I would make the payment there and then at the bank, but after an unfortunate incident with the accusation of stealing a pen a few years ago, I tend to avoid going in if necessary. Can you believe these banks sometimes, Tom? They have all my money under lock and key, and yet can't let me keep a handful of pens. Anyway, I think I'll go for the one-day delivery option. £630 is a small price to pay to become an overnight millionaire. And I close out the email with a plethora of pointless questions. Surprisingly, the scammer takes the time to reply to each question more or less, although making the faux pas of stating the car is now black instead of metallic silver. Oh dear, better check your script there, Tom. I point this out in my reply, but say I'll be leaving for the bank shortly to keep him keen. I didn't want to draw too much attention to the inconsistencies to avoid losing the scammer, and I am happy to say at this point I couldn't have dreamed how much longer this would have gone on for, as well as how utterly ridiculous it would get before we finally parted ways. Tom hits me up with a reply, reminding me to provide a payment slip as proof, whilst undoubtedly rubbing his hands together in anticipation for my £630. Unfortunately, in a trend that will become very common indeed, things did not go to plan for poor Bob Gupta. Dear Tomato, what a disaster. I am so upset. I went to my local branch earlier only to find it had been shut because a staff member tested positive for COVID-19. There was a little sign in the window and a sheepish member of staff behind the glass, bowing and apologising, whilst the branch was deep cleaned behind her. I decided to persevere and go to the next closest branch, which is in a village some 30 minutes away. Upon my arrival, there was a queue out the door of people. Clearly, I hadn't been the only one who had travelled from my hometown to this branch, so I waited. By the time I was the last but one customer in the queue, the branch shut. 4 p.m. the village branch closes. I'm so angry. So tomorrow I shall return first thing to get my money moved as necessary so I can organise your payment. I hope this delay won't be a problem. I'm almost shaking with anticipation. I'm this close to being a millionaire. Please, just bear with me, Tom. I have £400 in my current account at present. It's just the additional £230 I need to move in. Unless, of course, £400 would be acceptable now and we could strike up a deal. In a surprising move, Tomato turns down my £400 and insists on the £630. Wait, could this be genuine after all? Well, no, of course not, and if that isn't apparent to you now, then it will be soon. The scammer gives me a second bank account as well, which I gratefully receive, and even more gratefully, report. Time to introduce a gambit that will become pivotal in our story later on. I replied, "Good morning, Toma. Just wanted to let you know I am leaving shortly to go back to the bank. I would have left sooner, but my wife had to borrow the car to go to her early morning pottery class. I don't know why her lessons are so early in the morning. I'm also unsure as to why she always seems to return red-faced and messy-haired, as though she has been engaged in some heavy cardiovascular exercise. But I confess I do not know much about pottery making or how physically demanding it is. Between you and me, Tom, I think my wife may be up to something, and it is for this reason I have not shared with her the news about the BMW, the cash, and the Apple computer machine laptop. All being well, I think I shall divorce her once all has gone through. My son's payment for his silence, naturally, is the computer and the promise of his facial reconstructive surgery. The scammer says he hopes the money will be a means of a new beginnings for me and my dubious wife, and once again presses for payment. I decided it's time to go big or go home, and respond, "Dear Thoms, yes, my dubious wife certainly is very dubious. This one time she came home with what I knew, or thought I knew, to be a love bite on her neck. Her excuse? A rash from poison ivy. Sadly, this excuse was somewhat plausible, as we own a number of exotic, if not slightly dangerous, plants in our garden. Right, an update for you. After an extremely busy morning, the details of which I won't bore you with, but let's just say it involved driving to Tupanks, the branch in our village was closed due to the machinery involved still being infected with COVID-19, waiting in a queue for over an hour and a half, suffering the interrogation of the bank manager who was highly suspicious of what I was doing with my money. I think my reputation about the pen incident preceded me. I then had to use the toilet facilities in Aldi, since I have been drinking rather heavily since almost becoming a millionaire. In celebration, you understand. Then I remembered we needed more toilet roll, but I didn't want the rubbish 2-ply stuff Aldi sells, so I went to B&M Bargains instead, where their selection of toilet rolls were far more varied, especially in the ply department. After waiting in the queue for then another 23 minutes, I timed it on my Casio, I realised subsisting on liquids for the last few days was a terrible mistake. So I went to Greggs to get myself a sausage roll. Tom, have you seen their vegan sausage roll? I mean, what the hell is all that about? Why call it a sausage roll if it has no sausage in it? Just call it a vegetable roll, or imitation sausage styled roll. I think when I'm a millionaire, I will devote much time and resources to addressing this issue. What do you think, Tom? Sorry for rambling. Anyway, so I go back to the bank manager's eyes narrowed in a what's he up to kind of look, and I waited an extra 40 minutes to be served by someone who wasn't in the manager's pocket. Turns out, after I stood there in the empty banking hall with 3 cashiers available, that they were all in his pocket, and if I wanted to transact my business, then I simply need to suck it up and do my business with one of them. Rather embarrassingly, Tom, after finally succeeding in getting the £630 all in one account, ready to send to the account details you provided, the cashier informed me that the payment had bounced back. I asked her, was she suggesting my hard currency was made out of rubber, and looking at me with a puzzled expression, she told me the account details were invalid, and did I have an alternate account as to which I could make my payment. Luckily for us, Tom, I had the other account, the Sutton Bank one. Disaster strikes again! The same problem, the payment bounced back. I triple checked the account details, and the cashier once again informed me that the money was being returned with an error code associated with erroneous information or closed/fraudulent accounts. So Tom, as I'm getting very concerned that my prize is slipping away from me, do you have any other accounts I can make payment to? The branch shuts in about 3 hours, so please hurry with your response so I can make the payment and finally get a divorce and get my life financially back into safe waters. I'm currently still in the village, sat in my car using the nearby McDonald's Wi-Fi to get on the internet and send this to you. It's a bit cold in my car, the heater doesn't work after all, but that won't be a problem when I'm in my new BMW 7 Series. Hopefully getting exasperated with me, Thomas replies conciliatory and provides me with yet another bank account to be reported. I fire off a reply suggesting everyone at my bank knows this is a scam but me, and introduce another gambit in the form of an interloping BMW garage just to get the scammer concerned this is all going to blow up in his face. Naturally, Tom tried to dissuade me from visiting the BMW garage and ended the email calling all the naysayers in my way a bunch of idiots who don't want me to succeed. No, Tom, they don't want you to succeed in stealing my money. But what's this? Mayhap Bob should have followed the scammer's advice, as his trip to the BMW garage spelled more trouble. I replied, Tom, I've made a terrible mistake. When I left the car park of McDonald's, my phone lost connection to the Wi-Fi, so I didn't get your email until after I'd been to the BMW garage. Tom, I'm so sorry, but there are some really despicable people in the world. I went into the BMW garage and told them I was the winner of their lottery and that I'd like to pay £630 for express air freight delivery. The man I was dealing with looked confused at first, but then went off to speak with his supervisor. I was relieved when they both returned looking happy and helpful, and they said they could indeed take my £630. We sat down and processed the payment with not a single problem. After shaking hands, I asked if I could connect to their Wi-Fi so I could contact my agent, you, and let you know. That's when I saw your email. Tom, this is an independent BMW dealership. They robbed me of £630. They've got nothing to do with the official BMW lottery that I'm the sole winner of. I'm so mad. I'm sat in my car writing this message to you. I'm about to confront them about this and hopefully get my money back. I can't stand people like this, Tom. People who would take advantage and steal. The scammer, unbelievingly, is now completely invested in this charade and replies to berate me for not following his advice. He demands I go and get my money back and even gives me a fourth option to make payment. Bitcoin. I replied saying I've been able to instigate the refund of my money, but it'll take 3 to 5 days, and we ended up in fisticuffs before we were able to settle the problem. I also threw in a bit about how I'd be interrogated by my dubious wife on my return home, and begged Tom to wait until I received my money back. The scammer's patience starting to wane now. He suggests I simply find another £630 and make payment immediately by Bitcoin. Gosh, he really wants me to receive this car. Wanting to see how low Tom would go, in my reply I stated the only £630 I could lay my hands on is money set aside for household bills, and surely he wouldn't want me to dip into that. I finished up my email by saying I may have to take the cheaper option, and that the day's events and misfortunes bordered on comedy. Although not outright saying I should use the bills money to make payment, the scammer did insist I pay early the next morning, so I can only assume he intended I do just that. Again, really surprisingly, instead of accepting a lower amount, the scammer wanted my £630, which is unusual since most scammers will usually dicker and accept a lower amount if they think they will at least get something. Is this indicative of it being a genuine transaction? Nope. It just means this scammer's greedy and perhaps trying very hard to appear as a bona fide representative of the very real BMW lottery. Sensing Tom was firmly on the hook, I decided to up the ante. So the next morning, I replied with, "Hi Mr. Jay-Z. Okay, so the money I was willing to part with from the bills account temporarily is gone, along with the electricity bill and my son's numerous subscriptions to something called OnlyFans, which was curiously the bigger of the two bills. There is no longer enough available balance to transfer the money and send it to you. Which isn't so terrible, given how busy I was yesterday trying to do just that. But do bear with me. I'm not allowed to tell you this, Tom, but I've had a very interesting email from a lovely gentleman who may have the solution to my money problem. I'm just in the process of sending him some vital information, and he's going to release some funds to me. Apparently, my name was on some list and I've been selected as a beneficiary. What luck! I knew converting to pescatarianism was the right choice. Everything's been looking up since then." Tom, either not reading or simply not comprehending the waffle of my previous email, replied with another chaser to incite me to make payment. Wanting to do the absolute opposite of what the scammer wanted, however, I replied asking to swap to the cheaper delivery option and stated I hoped getting the car off the plane wouldn't be a problem, as well as throwing in a few more questions for him to dither about typing out a lie for. Finally acquiescing, the scammer agrees to the cheaper option, but sensing I'm about to be scammed by someone else, implores me not to accept any other grants, otherwise face being disqualified from his perfectly legitimate BMW lottery, as well as nudging about Bitcoin again. Does this mean the accounts I reported previously have been shut down? I do hope so. I prattle on about where the laptop and bank check will be kept to keep things thoroughly off topic, but throw poor Thomas a bone by asking for his Bitcoin wallet. He gladly hands it over, as well as giving me some tosh that the laptop and bank check will be handed to me personally by the courier, allowing me to mine a new vein of off-topicness. Here's those emails. Pause the video if you want to read that small exchange. After asking when I'll be sending the money, I say I'll be sending the £630 once the funds have cleared from my other source. Now, Tomato doesn't like this, and his short responses are now clear indications of his annoyance. Do not process another grant from another source. This would disqualify you automatically from our database. Just send $550 and wait for your consignment. So I reply with, "But how could BMW possibly know if I proceed with the funds from another source? Are you going to tell them?" Tom replies with something that could stand a tiny bit of head scratching, and the effort he has put into making it sound at least halfway believable tells me he is not only currently hooked through the mouth, but so far off script anything could happen. He says, "Your database would reflect that you have a grant claimed already, and they are all regulated by the IMF. I won't be able to go on with the delivery by then because I would get arrested. Why don't you pen that and get this one first? I'm only saying this because I want you to get this. Usually I wouldn't say anything and just give you the sad news later. You deserve it. You have earned it." Tom ends his email instructing me to pay by Bitcoin again. Shit! I emailed back, "Well, I wouldn't want you to get arrested, Tom. Prison should be reserved for criminals, like the people from the other source we've been discussing. Turns out, they are scammers. Can you believe that? There's me thinking my change in lifestyle had prompted good fortune to come my way, and it turns out they were just low-life criminal scum using unscrupulous methods to steal money from me. Probably done it to hundreds of unsuspecting victims, maybe thousands. Luckily, I'm not an idiot, Tom, so you can rest assured that I will not proceed with any other business outside of ours. But that still leaves me with the immediate issue of where to get the money. Even £550 is a stretch to get a hold of until the independent BMW dealership returns my £630. But I have an idea about that. Would you like to hear it? Tom, potentially scenting the smell of cash, responds in agreement with me about criminals being in prison and positively wets his lips at whatever my idea could be that'll line his pockets. Now, we know we cannot deduct the funds from the prize money, so instead I suggest... Well, Tom, it's come to my attention that I could literally just buy an Apple laptop, computer machine, laptop, Apple machine, laptop, Mac Pro 13 once the bank check is in my custody. I can even take my son to the Apple shop, which sadly is not shaped like the fruit whence it gets its namesake, and let him choose whatever he wants. So, Tom, I propose that I sell you the laptop for £550, but instead of sending me the £550, you instead upfront the delivery cost. But wait, there's more. Since I know it could be an inconvenience for you to be £550 out of pocket, despite having a brand new Apple computer, once the bank check has cleared, I will then personally send you a check for £1,100. You'd get your money back double. I'd get my car and £1.5 million. My son gets his pick of computer from Apple and gets to smile about it after his facial reconstructive surgery. It's a foolproof plan, Tom, if only you're brave enough to take this chance with me, a man you yourself has regarded as good and deserving. Clearly disappointed and nearing defeat, Tom replied with a deflated one-liner, stating anyone to tamper with my package would be imprisoned. I did wonder at this point if the scammer thought the game was nearly up, but little did either of us know at this point we were only hitting the halfway point. Things were about to get a lot stranger. Unperturbed, I press on with... Oh dear, does it have some sort of electronic alarm that summons nearby law enforcement if it's tampered with? I've seen security like that before. Presumably, that wouldn't happen if I opened it. Or worse, my son. Okay, forget buying the laptop from me. How about you lend me the money? You pay it for me, and then when I become a millionaire, I'll send you a year's salary as gift. Deal? Tom replies with a stroppy email stating he doesn't want to go to jail, probably a small nugget of truth in that, and that I am complicating the matter by not following his instructions and making payment by Bitcoin. Starting to detect an undercurrent of annoyance on Tom's part, I reply, Tom, I'm starting to detect an undercurrent of annoyance on your part, which is understandable. I'm frustrated at the situation too, but I have tried to give you as much detail of my journey to get this money to you. You know all the trouble I've had, the bad luck I've faced. I have explained to you what happened when I finally got the £630 in one place, ready to send to you. It was a subsidiary of your company, BMW, that thought they could make some easy money by taking that money back at the independent dealership. Of course, they didn't get away with it, but I have to wait until at least tomorrow or Friday before that money goes back in. Personally, I feel that, as compensation, BMW should pay the delivery cost up front for having one of your own dealerships, independent or not, try and steal money from the winner of the official BMW lottery. I didn't want to suggest that earlier, Tom, because you've been good to me. You've established I'm a good and deserving man, and I've established you are not a criminal or scammer like those other people I was dealing with earlier today. But I'm suggesting it now, Tom, because BMW has in its employ an independent garage using the BMW name, which I know they cannot do without special permissions, licenses, etc., who tried to take advantage of me. I should be compensated for that betrayal. I'm sure you would agree. In fact, Tom, it was because of you that I did not involve the police. I thought, my good friend Tom at BMW can sort this out. But can you, Tom? Will you, Tom? Will you help me? Because I know deep down that you want to. Maybe even need to. To my surprise, my heartfelt email seems to have brought the scammer back to the game, and he seems to be gobbling up my fiction as though he were hungry and it were food. He signed off the email saying he couldn't wait to meet me in person. Curious. And I said so. Ignoring my question, the scammer fires off 2 emails within an hour of each other, further prattling on about sending payment, which has gone back up to £630 for some reason, and casting aspersions on my dubious wife, which leads us perfectly to the next spanner in the works. Oh, it seems Doreen Gupta, the fictional wife of our hero, has cottoned on to the antics and is not pleased. She sent this email to the scammer. This is Doreen Gupta. Raghaus's wife. The game is up, Mr. Jace. You're probably wondering why Raghaus wasn't replying to you last night, I found him huddled over his little machine trying to apply for a loan so that he could send you this fee so he could receive his winnings and divorce me, his dubious wife. I am furious that you two have been scheming, conspiring behind my back, all the while making fun at my expense and casting aspersions on my character. It was poison ivy that brushed on my neck. As for the pottery classes, Mr. Jace, have you ever carried 15 kilograms of clay back and forth? It's exhausting. Raghaus is currently staying at a hotel whilst I decide whether or not to divorce him myself. My son has been grounded indefinitely for keeping his silence in exchange for an Apple laptop. I am disgusted at all of you. Rather than being abashed at the whole affair, the scammer turns into an impromptu marriage counsellor and doubles down on the notion that this is, in fact, the real deal, and replies, "Hello, Doreen Gupta. I sincerely received your mail and it was well understood. Sorry for the conclusion I've taken. I'll gladly advise you to both resolve this issue between yourselves because your husband seems like a decent man. It would be good if you make him see reasons to trust you again. Join hands together to become a successful couple once again, even if for the sake of your son." Doreen, that is to say, me, decides to double-cross Raghaus and sends this reply. "I thank you for your kind words of encouragement on part of my relationship with my husband. You are sadly mistaken on one fact though, he is not a decent man. He may have painted a pretty picture to you, but the second he received your email, he quit his job, shut me out of all communication, and bribed our son to not only win his affection, but to cut me out of any of this fortune, to leave me penniless and in debt on the street whilst he and my son lived a life of luxury. And all of that is to say nothing of what happened at the bank with the pens some years ago. It was in the local paper, the disgrace of it. Now, I've spent the last few hours reading through these emails again, and I see how stupid my husband has been with his money, and how even now he has not received his refund from that wicked BMW dealership. I have access to his bank accounts too, you know. But what he doesn't know is that I have my own account with my own money put to one side. An emergency fund, if you will. Mr. Jace, I have more than enough to cover the £630 fee for the delivery of this consignment. Perhaps you would be willing to send it to me instead. I assure you I can pay quickly. In fact, I need to go to the bank later today anyway. Let me know." The scammer, who at this point cares little on who pays as long as someone does, acquiesces and gives Doreen his Bitcoin wallet address as well as instructions on how to pay via Bitcoin. However, Bob isn't out of the game yet. Shaking things up, as Raghaus, I send, "Tom, it's Bob. I've managed to get onto a computer at the hotel I'm being forced to stay at. I've read through the emails between you and my wife, so I know that you know I've been kicked out." Tom, how could you say you'd give the money to her? For how long have we been speaking and planning to get this sorted? I can't believe this. Tom, the £630 should be returned to my account tomorrow. I know Doreen is out in town now sorting this out, but are you really just going to give it all to her? She has locked our son in his room. She's kicked me out, and now, after sending you 2 emails, you're just going to give it all to her instead? She'll divorce me and keep everything. Tom, please, for the love of all that is good and for the good, dependable name of BMW, do not give her the winnings. Please, Tom, don't. The scammer replies in a bizarrely formatted email. "Dear Bob, I find you to be a decent and reasonable man. I have to attend to thousands of grant winners this period, and still I find you very deserving of it more than all. It is my topmost goal to have your winnings delivered, and I decided to let your wife pay for it so that I can fulfill this obligation. I inquired on your behalf from the board of directors regarding the complexity of your case and was able to secure an individual grant of £1.5 million and a Series 7 BMW car, silver colour. Moros, yours would not contain the Apple MacBook as it needs to be restocked. However, the former grant is now available to your wife if she makes the payment today. I hope I have done well by you." Amused but not shocked at the lengths and lies scammers will go to make people part with their cash, I decided to crank up the ridiculous meter a notch and replied, "Just to clarify, as I'm in a state of shock at the moment, you have personally spoken to the directors of BMW and managed to convince them to part with an additional £1.5 million and a second BMW Series 7. So, like, my wife could have £1.5 million and the BMW Series 7, my son the Apple computer, laptop machine, computer, Apple laptop, and I can have my own £1.5 million BMW Series 7, but in metallic silver like I wanted, just without the laptop. You've managed to negotiate this, all on my behalf. To which Thomas replied, "It was easy gaining an extra slot for you. It's easy gaining slot for a random person you don't know. It's only difficult getting for oneself. Funny, right? I complained about the department that received cash payment and your son's health. The goal is to make people happy and fulfill their dreams. I hope this wasn't a plot from you and your wife to get double." Curious to see how laughably bonkers I could be, and still at this point in a weird state of euphoria to have kept the scammer on the hook this long, I said, "Dear Thomas Jace, you have been honest with my wife Doreen and I all throughout this process. It only seems fair to come clean with you. Yes, we were trying to get double. After you told my wife that she could claim the consignment in my place, I felt betrayed. And after all we've been through, you just give it all up to her. That, combined with the trouble with the independent BMW dealership stealing my money, I began to feel disenfranchised with the whole thing. Am I wrong to believe that I deserve £3 million, 2 BMW Series 7s, and an Apple computer laptop, Apple machine, Apple laptop computer laptop, Apple laptop machine computer laptop, Apple? Maybe, but I want it, and I think BMW are obliged to send them to me, free of charge. Suggesting I shouldn't have to pay a penny for all the trouble I've endured, the scammer immediately reverts to a position of stroppy annoyance, warning me that he will have my consignment terminated and inform the board that I am disqualified, whilst firmly planting himself in Camp Doreen, believing her to be out in town that very moment, making the payment. Raghouse, not being able to see the wood for the trees on account of the large dollar signs in his eyes, replies, "So, are we receiving the £3 million, 2 BMWs, an Apple MacBook, or is it just one consignment? I'd hate to be disqualified, but I'd like to know if the double reward is what we're getting." In, again, a weirdly formatted response, and taking up the role of marriage counsellor, the scammer replies, "I told you earlier that the board director have heard everything that happened between you and your wife Doreen. That's why he told me to deliver the package to your wife and set up your own consignment. Once again, congratulations to you both. You're receiving the sum of £1.5 million each and 2 BMW Series 7 car. But your wife parcel will be coming with the Apple MacBook laptop. Have you been able to get in touch with your wife and have everything resolved? I'll advise you to both come together and make love and stay happy with your son." What the f? Ignoring the question he wanted answering and trying to make the scammer blush, I reply, "Well, I didn't realise the board director was so generous listening to my tale of woe and just deciding to give my wife £1.5 million in a new car. You must be one hell of a negotiator. Surely this job is beneath you if you can convince people to part with huge sums of money in goods. Perhaps you should be in government, Tom. Tell me, is this what you always wanted to do? Work for BMW? Is it still what you want to do? It's never too late to begin anew at something, especially when you clearly have the tools to do great things. I have spent a great part of the evening with Doreen, and we shall update you tomorrow on what we have decided to do. For now, however, we are going to take your advice and, well, you know."
Okay.
Hopefully flushing with mixed embarrassment and impatience, Thomas sends this brief reply. "Thanks for your understanding. I'm very glad you both settled. I look forward to hear from you tomorrow. Thank you, and remain blessed." The following day, Doreen, by far the more fastidious of the Guptas, needs to be satiated with some official paperwork, which is simply my cover story because I wanted to see what rubbish MS Paint job the scammer would be willing to pass off as genuine BMW documentation, and boy, I was not let down. Thomas replies a few hours later with another nudge about Bitcoin, and to my surprise, 2 attachments purporting to be just what Doreen requested. Let's take a moment to just enjoy this visual catastrophe. First, there's the absolutely terribly cropped and inserted picture of a BMW, which I'm not sure if it is or isn't a 7 Series because I'm not, as the initial email claims, a BMW enthusiast. There's the oddity that the BMW in the supposed address has only its first letter capitalised, which is quite disrespectful, and that the address doesn't really match up with the actual BMW dealership on Wilshire Boulevard. Another minor but annoying thing is the BMW logo just slightly overlapping the border, and the award clip art is laughably basic. Come on guys, my 9-year-old could whip up something better than this. The signatures, probably of random famous or historical figures, do not resemble in the slightest the names that they purport to be, being far too long for a name Lee Hu with 5 letters total on the left and starting with what looks like an F for a name beginning with a B on the right. Also, Bent Johnson. Nobody names their child Bent. If there are any Bents watching this video, I apologise unreservedly. And what's this sentence about? This is to certify that the approved information as mentioned with reference number has won BMW online promotion and is awarded with a brand new BMW Series 7 card and above sum. Read aloud. That just makes no sense. Oh well, let's take a look at Doreen's. Pretty much identical, but oh dear. There's a pretty serious typo on Doreen's certificate. Mrs. Doreen Raghouse? Surely that would invalidate the legitimacy of such an important document. I reply to the scammer to state this fact, as well as highlight the dangerous domestic situation such a mistake has put me in by saying, Thomas, thanks for scanning over those highly real and legitimate documents. Unfortunately, Doreen is very upset. You see, on her certificate, her name has been entered as Mrs. Doreen Raghouse, not, as would be legal and satisfactory in a court of law, if needs be, Doreen Gupta, which is her actual name. She has not reacted well to this. She believes that her certificate was deliberately misspelled so as to disqualify her from the prize and to prevent her from making any claim against my prize should we end up in a dispute in the court of law pending some imaginary divorce she believes is going to happen. Tom, she has absolutely refused to let either of us leave the house until this mistake is rectified. She has gone as far as to hide the keys to my Toyota and promised to put me in a leg lock to prevent me from leaving the house on foot. That may not sound like a real threat, but you must understand, my wife is the National Ladies Wrestling Over 50s champ. In fact, so feared is she in our immediate community, parents often use her as a means to scare misbehaving children. If you don't eat your dinner, I'll get Doreen Gupta to bend you into the shape of a pretzel. Stuff like that. Tom, I implore you to get her certificate amended immediately, otherwise I may never walk again, let alone get to drive my new BMW. Tom, please, she's frightening me now. Perhaps fearing for the safety of his paycheck, Thomas replies in less than 10 minutes, talking about a computer error and how he'll get it fixed. Doreen, impatient with the whole situation, sends this frightening reply. Thomas, it's Doreen. Raghouse is currently semi-conscious on the floor. No, I haven't attacked him. He fainted. That's the kind of power I wield in this relationship, Tom. You understand me? My need for things to be just right and in my control. I would suggest that you make haste with correcting my certificate, otherwise poor Raghouse won't have a rear end to sit with in his new car. The clock is ticking. Thomas, perhaps a little scared, replies in 4 minutes with the updated certificate, which is just as ridiculously rudimentary as before, but at least with the proper name now. Thanks for that time waster, Tom. Shame on you for not checking your work. Doreen, satiated at last, but wanting to sow the seed for the next round of buffoonery, replies, Thank you, Tom. That all appears to be in order now. Raghouse is groggy, so I'll wait until he is compos mentis before we set off on our errands. The first being returning to that independent BMW garage with our certificate to show them what real winners look like, and to give them a piece of my mind about stealing that £630 from my husband in the first place. Hopefully trying to remain professional whilst simultaneously pulling his hair out, the scammer responds, Hello, Doreen. I sincerely received your mail and it was well understood. As soon as Raghouse is full control of one's mind, you should proceed immediately. If possible, you can as well. Go ahead, remit the payment and get back to the independent BMW garage due to the time ticking before the Bitcoin machine get closed so that the delivery can commence without further delay. I'll be waiting to hear from you as soon as the payment is made up, and get back to me with the receipt so I can immediately forward to the accounting department for confirmation. Oh, I'll definitely be making up the payment. I waited about 5 hours and sent an obscure email to further delay the scam, as well as force Tom to question his life choices. I put, Tom, what a day. It'll take a while to explain and we're still at the hospital. Providing all goes well here and we are discharged without further incident, I will endeavour to update you on what I can only describe as the most unbelievable day of our lives. The scammer, clearly unable to wait any longer for our promised update, sends a nudge and says, Good morning, Bob and Doreen. How is Bob this morning? I hope he's back on his feet. I just arrived at my office this morning just to help you seal off your consignment deal today and get shipped to you. I expected that you would have sent the Bitcoin already with the receipt in hand. Is there any reason for the delay? I will head back home now if this isn't the case. Apparently there's not much else for Thomas to do at the office. This is the point where I decide to crank the old ridiculous meter so high that the knob falls off. I'm going to read this in full, Not because I think it's an excellent piece of prose, but because for me at this point, this was the accumulation of all the bizarre situations, twists, turns and shenanigans all coming together to finally push poor, impatient Thomas Chase off the edge. Hi Tom, it's Raghouse. That was me in the last email. Sorry it's been confusing for you, both of us using the same email. Tom, now, I don't want you to be upset, but the events of yesterday didn't quite go as planned, hence the lack of response from us. Here's what happened. After receiving your highly real and unquestionably legitimate certificates, Doreen and I set off, each with our £630 in cash, to pay it into the local Bitcoin ATM, as per your instruction. Doreen, being quite a hot-headed lady, wanted to visit the BMW dealership on the way, we'd have to drive past it several miles before reaching where the nearest Bitcoin ATM is, to yell at them for trying to steal my money and to rub in their faces the fact that we were about to receive £1.5 million each, as well as a new BMW, which they would never see any commission on because we were getting for free. We were greeted by a man whom I had not met before, and he introduced himself as the general manager. He apologised for what happened on my previous visit and invited us to complete our errand there and then, as he actually had a Bitcoin ATM on site. What luck, we thought, saving us a journey into town during a national lockdown. We entered the departmental Bitcoin address. Doreen deposited her money first, then I followed. £1,260 went into the machine. We waited for our receipt, but nothing came out. Doreen turned and asked the manager what the hell was going on. At this point, he burst into laughter. His other co-workers, some of which had taken the money from me earlier this week, came out from where they were hiding, all of them laughing at us. They had taken our money again. Only this time, Doreen, over 50 as a wrestling champ, was with me. She threw herself at the manager, grappling and twisting him like he were made of dough. The other co-workers honed in on Doreen, but she hurled the manager at them, and they fell like pins. Then she lifted the fake Bitcoin ATM over her head and smashed it to the floor, cracking tiles and scattering pieces of machinery all around. Some of them smashed nearby windscreens of BMWs on display, but Doreen wasn't done. She picked up the water dispenser and emptied the entire tank on top of the piled up bodies. The floor became instantly very slippy, but this was not such a bad thing, for the fake Bitcoin ATM had caught fire and the puddles of water stopped it spreading. Doreen screeched as she realised that our paper money was now on fire. She dived on top of the blaze to try and get it back, getting badly burnt in the process. I jumped in and wrenched her back from the flames, despite her animal yelps of pain and fury. But the damage was done. The money was destroyed, along with the fake Bitcoin ATM. The police arrived and we were all arrested. Doreen was taken to the hospital and I was released once they realised what had happened. I joined Doreen in hospital and stayed at her bedside while she received medical treatment. The independent BMW dealership is currently under investigation for attempting to steal from us again, and this time we are pressing charges. Of course, this means that the £630 we both had is now gone, and though we can claim it back as criminal damages in the upcoming court case, we have no money now to pay you for the delivery of our 2 consignment shipments. Help, Tom. Things are worse than ever. The scammer had finally had enough and sent a very curt, "Sorry, your package will be terminate." Wanting to keep this ship called annoyance and frustration afloat, I ask if he will honour the consignments if we can get the money. Another curt reply. After today, it's a no. I tried to appeal to the scammer's emotional side and say, "Tom, why are you being like this? For nearly a week we have been speaking and building up a relationship. My wife was in the hospital. I've tried my best to keep you in the loop this whole time. Don't tell me you're going to give up on us now." To which the scammer replies, "I don't understand your story. I put my reputation on the line to get you a new grant. After today, the grant will be going to some other random persons. Thank you for your time, but..." Cold, Tom. I cast out my line again, asking if he cares where the money comes from, as long as it's today. And admonishingly, the scammer says after today, he's going to give our grant to someone else, that his faith in me has been misplaced, and that maybe we don't deserve our winnings after all. Pfft, charming. Unperturbed, but still wanting to waste time, I reply, "Okay, I want to get this sorted tonight. Can I ask you a question?" Tom acquiesces, but holds firm that today is the last day for me to make payment. So, I reply, "You were able to negotiate from the director an additional £1.5 million, right? And a second BMW for my wife, right? You managed to do that because you're a professional, correct?" But the scammer, clearly seeing where this is going, tries to end things with a defeated, "Good day, Bob." Ignoring this supposed door slammed in my face, I press on with, "No, it's been a rather bad day, actually. What I'm suggesting, Tom, is use your exceptional skills at negotiating to ask them to pay the £630. I mean, they agreed to an extra 1.5 million and an extra car, all because you fought my corner. Do that again, but for the delivery fee. Please?" Tom replies with, "I made a bad judgment call, thinking you deserved. I'll have it all called off tonight. A little sacrifice to greatness and not everyone will still be able to take it. The payment is for your insurance and VAT certificate. No one will pay it for you. Someone else somewhere will make good of this rare opportunity. Another mail from you aside from the receipt and I'll have your email blacklisted." Right, so it's a receipt you want, is it? Finally giving the scammer something to at least temporarily get excited about, I send this, an attachment of a highly contrasted Bitcoin receipt I pulled from Google. Nearly an hour passes with no word from Tom, and I'm starting to worry, so I send my own nudge. "Tom, can you confirm your receipt of the receipt?" Mercifully, he replied a few hours later, stating quite reasonably, "Please send a clear picture of the receipt so I can confirm it. How much did you send also? Please send a clear picture of the receipt so I can scan it and confirm the Bitcoin sent." I reply saying I can't send a better photo because my phone was damaged in the fight at the independent BMW dealership, and that any money I sent should be showing in his account, which naturally it wouldn't since I sent Fanny Adams. Tom replies shortly thereafter with 2 distrustful emails saying, "The receipt contains a private key as you see in the receipt. I have to scan it to get the Bitcoin, else it would be stuck on the receipt. I would suggest that you endeavour to send a better picture so that I can scan and transfer the coin off the private key. And I asked earlier, how much did you send? Or else, that is a fake receipt. I'd advise you to take a clear picture if you want your package to be cleared for shipping." I replied to say I'll see what I can do. The scammer, maybe living in hope, replies to tell me that he is waiting. Now, I hope he was sat in front of his computer, refreshing the page every few minutes in anticipation of my reply. Sadly, he wouldn't get it that night. Early the next morning, I send, "Sorry about the delay. I went to sleep. Do you still want a receipt, or, as it's now the following day, are you terminating my consignment?" The scammer, going back on his own deadline in some desperate hope that the receipt is genuine, replies telling me to send the receipt and finally seems to be questioning how serious I am. Spoiler, not very. I respond with a disbelieving and totally sarcastic, "Tomato, if it has not been obvious that I am 100% serious about this entire business, then I do not know how else to prove it to you. Only a small boy would see the effort and time I have put into getting this consignment and think I was not serious. You're not a small boy, are you? So, do you want the receipt or are you going to keep insulting me?" Sadly, this email didn't get a bite, so after doing some research, I find an online Bitcoin receipt generator and put together this, which looks suitable as an online replacement, and I do think is used for Bitcoin transaction receipt creation for those conducting actual transactions with it. I stick it in an email and send it to Tom, casting out my line once again. Anger finally breaking, the scammer replies, "Are you mad? Stop sending me a fake receipt and get the hell out. I've terminated your package. Stop contact or else I'll tell the Interpol to come get you arrested." Trying to save face, I respond, "Why on earth would I do that? Do you think it was a scam website I used?" Tom, confirming something my friends and family have known for years, says, "You must be crazy." Realising we are at the end of our journey, I tell the scammer, "Perhaps I don't want to get scammed?" Trying desperately to hold on to some shred of credibility, the scammer huffily replies, "You've the certification of proof never to send me an email again." Rumbled at last, I send this in a last-ditch effort to try and break through the scam nonsense and talk to Tom, most definitely not his real name, as a person and not a scammer. Okay, Tom, let's try for a bit of honesty now. Let's drop the act. We both know what's been going on here, and if it's taken you this long to figure out, God help you. I know you're a scammer, and you've rather unwisely entrusted to me several bank accounts and a Bitcoin address. Now, I am one click away from sending those details to financial crime, action fraud, and the respective banks with which you hold accounts. Now, I won't do this if you agree to just cut the crap for a minute and talk to me. I want to know, why do you do this? I want to know if your situation has made you stoop to a position of trying to coerce people out of their money, or do you really have no conscience? Please, give this conversation a chance. Get real with me, and I won't send those emails. Now, of course, I had already reported the bank details as and when I received them, but this little double cross didn't come to any fruition anyway, as the scammer had finally given up on me. I made one more attempt at trying to convince him to talk, but alas, no luck. I can only hope that our interaction and my reporting of his accounts gave him time to pause and really ask himself if this is something he should be doing. Naturally, there is no way of knowing. For all I know, he could have just continued scamming or trying to scam other people, and as we've seen from our back and forth, his tolerance for shenanigans is surprisingly high. Either way, as my first successful scambait, I am happy with how this turned out, and astounded at how long and to what ridiculous lengths we went to before game's end. Guys, if you've stuck around to the very end for this remastered edition, then thank you so much. I hope you enjoyed it. I'm a lot happy with the overall quality of the episode, and it just feels more in keeping with the others now in terms of sort of production and overall quality, if you like. I don't know if you noticed, but the original episode actually came out on January 25th, 2022, and although it was my intention to release the remastered version sooner, the fact that it's come out exactly a year to the day for me is a bit poetic. I'm really excited about some of the videos I've got planned for this year, and again, I just want to thank you guys so much for your support and making my first official year on YouTube an absolute pleasure. Having this as a hobby has been really helped me in a mental health sort of way, and having you guys watch, comment, subscribe, it's just been so fantastic. So from me, sincerely, just a really massive thank you. If you're new here and you want to get involved, then feel free to like and comment, and we can have a chat in the comments. You know me, I'll always get back to you. But again, just thank you so much. Anyways, that is enough from me, guys. So I'll end by saying, take care, and I'll see you in the next one. I also want to say a big thank you to CJ Scams and Take a Glass of Water Media for their support and their ongoing fights. Ongoing fights? Are they fighting? Are they arguing? For their support and efforts in the ongoing fight against scammers. What happened there? This is the point where I turn the knob on the... This is the point where I crank the knob on the knob. Stop saying knob.